Welcome to the third part, which is all about the ECB audit system. You heard already a little bit about what it is about, why it's so amazing, but let's go dive in deeper into the ECB audit system. So, looking at the overview, we will be talking about the minimums, we will be talking about requesting evidence, the timeline, criteria to pass, the sanctions, and educating and downscaling. So, to start with the minimums, we do have everything legislated in the policies. The biggest policy is that every entity must have an audit system in place. So it is not optional, it is something that every entity has to have. And the ECB is the audit is performed by the ECB because the ECB is the independent body from the entity. So there is no ulterior motive. We are a third party in a sense, that we're checking the documents and ensuring that everything is going accordingly. We do also have the minimum that it needs to be audited at least 4 times a year. So every quarter means we have January, February, and March. This is 1 quarter. In April, you should be auditing at least that quarter. We obviously have monthly audit as well, but I will go and dive deeper into that in a bit. But here you can see the different criteria that we have, the minimums, and we are working on them as well. But so far, this is the overview of what you need to have. I will go dive deeper into each section. And if you have any more questions, you can always ask your ECB auditor responsible. So looking over to requesting evidence. Here we have the biggest tool that we have is the compliance matrix. So for each violation that is in the compliance matrix, there should be an evidence that you need to check. So there is a lot of violations, but you can also have evidence that is basically covering a lot of violations because obviously we cannot ask 300 documents from an LC to be providing per EP, but you will see if you go through the violations, there are some certain things that need to be delivered, and usually we have around maybe like 20 documents per EP, but this really varies on the ECB audit system that is for each entity. So, but other thing that you have to keep in mind as well is that we are requesting evidence according to the EP status on EXPA. So if an EP is approved, we look at the contract, we look at the planned realized date, for example. If an EP is realized, we ensure that they had their OPS, that they have the right visa. If an EP is finished, we ensure that they had departure support and all of these kind of things. So it is according to the EXPA status, as well as obviously opening an opportunity. Do we have the contract? Is the opportunity opened the way it is supposed to be? So there is a lot of violation that can be happening in the customer flow. So make sure to understand this as well, that it is pretty much there is violations as well for the whole experience of the EPs, but we also have violations that are a little bit outside. So we have some violations that are specific for MC, so they have to prepare a health management plan, they have to educate the network on the APIP, they have to ensure there is a risk management plan. So there's a different things as well that are just for the MC, and some are for the LCs that are actually managing the EPs. To also keep in mind, requesting evidence is not supposed to be extra work for the LCs or for the MC. It is just checking, because obviously we have the minimums. Those are the things that should be part of their work. It should not be something that they just do for the audit. No, auditing is pretty much just going in and saying like, oh, okay, hey, you have been working. Can we check if it's actually according to the rules? And that is usually a little bit of something that people don't fully understand, is that audit is not supposed to be extra work. They're not supposed to create new documents. They're not supposed to be doing anything out of the ordinary. They should just be showing that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So inviting the EP to the OPS, ensuring that they signed the contract. So those are not things that they just create for the audit, but it's something that they should do during their work, and we check it. So yeah, going over to the next one is the timeline. So there are usually two options that most entities choose. It's either having a monthly audit or a quarterly audit. So having a monthly audit means that you can basically audit the previous month. It's not that many EPs, and as well you can apply sanctions straight away. A quarterly audit is usually 3 months, obviously, that we like. It's not 3 months. It's you you audit the 3 months. It is a lot more EPs, and you do it then after the quarter end. We do recommend to have a monthly audit, because the issue is that if you do a quarter audit, it is very hard to track the LCs on their delivery. So if they do for example, do a mistake in January, you will only be able to see it in April. And that's then already 3 months past. They have had more EPs. Maybe they did it wrong with them as well. So we do recommend to have a monthly audit, so you can actually deal and educate and take the necessary steps to ensure that all of the EPs are having a good experience. Then going over to the criteria to pass. So basically, when you do have your ECB audit, you request evidence, you audit the evidence, but also you need to have a certain criteria to say, okay, when does the MC or an LC actually pass the audit? This also varies on how you want to do it. We have, usually I would recommend to also have that they need to deliver 100% of the documents, because obviously they should be complying to all of the guidelines and rules. And then depending on how many percent they achieved, so for example, if they achieved between 80% and 100%, that they get or 80% and 99%, that they do get a little bit more of an education session, or they just need to show that they need to just show that they're improving for the next month. And then if they achieved maybe lower than 60 and 40%, then they have more of a proper alignment plan and education plan, and more of a sanction that needs to be implemented. But it is up to you. So we have people that want at least like a certain amount of documents being actually submitted, passed, and then obviously it also depends on maybe the violation of that, the level of the violation that they didn't pass. So it is up to you. It is really up to you. Looking at the sanctions as well, we do have more info in this link that you see down there, but to kind of summarize sanction is that if an LC didn't pass, if you see they're not following the rules of the APIP, they're not following the policies, then they should be sanctioned. That means that they do get a red card, pretty much, that they should be respecting the delivery of the documents, that they should be doing this. But please remember as well that sanctions are not there to punish. Sanctions are there so you see an issue with an LC, for example, that are struggling with delivering the OPS. That means, okay, what steps can we take? How can we educate them? How can we prevent these issues from happening again? And then you go into that LC and educate them about OPS. You help them to manage it a little bit better. And through that, you can target and prevent more issues. So sanctions are more a tool to prevent things from happening again, to make them understand, okay, this cannot be happening like this. You need to change your way. So it's not about punishing. It's definitely not, and you should always keep that in mind. Then to educating and downscaling. Education is obviously one of the most important things. I think as well, if you look at the sanctions, I can always suggest educating, because a lot of times people are just lost. They're lost. They're just humans. They're LC members. They're sometimes very new to ISAC, and they're just very lost. and just need a little bit more education and support. So I would always go for a sanction like that. But obviously this can also be a preventive measure. So if you have conferences, if you have an education hub, make sure to have a lot of materials for auditing as well, so they fully understand what they need to deliver, how your ECB audit system works, what are the consequences if you don't deliver, and just provide a better understanding of on how things are. And I can always suggest a Google Classroom like this one. But you see a GCP down here as well from Denmark and Ghana. So you can kind of like see how a booklet of an education system could look like. But yeah, this was it. This was a little bit about the ECB audit system, so you understand how it is structured, on what are the most important things. And if you have any more questions, just message your ECB auditor. Thank you.